So what we're working on is a 1952 Ford F1 pickup truck. Belongs to a buddy of mine down in out of Texas. Brought this thing up here and we started working on it. We started with the floor pan. We obviously braced it all up best we could, stabilized this thing, cut the floor pan out. That's the remaining of the floor pan. Worked on these rear supports. Kind of redid all this, fabricated that both sides. Test fitted the floor pan. Fits good. Got a little modification we got to do to it. But so the next thing is what we're going to do with the firewall. We know the firewall's got to be replaced. There's no doubt about that. But we got to looking at it, and we've got a lot of deterioration, a lot of rust on not only this front cab support, which is coming with the firewall. That'll get replaced, and so will this piece right up there. But this piece right here acts as support, and it is in rough shape. I don't know if you can see up there, but you can see it's bad. So the problem with this thing is there's certain places where there's actually 3 pieces of metal, and it's just rusted through. It's in bad shape. So what I got to do is try to figure out how do I get this out of here and save it, not cut it to pieces, because I'm going to have to refabricate this piece. From what I can tell, or whatever, all the looking I've done, I can't find a patch panel for that. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got several kind of weird oddball angles going on. But also we've got this lower cowl, I think they call it. It's got some kind of hole here. I'm not sure what that was for or why they did that. But again, this has got a lot of rust all the way up to about here. It starts to feel a little more solid there. So what I'm going to try to do, or the idea is separate this, try to separate this sandwich section here. And what I did was I went ahead and drilled out all my spot welds. There's a bunch of them there. So I drilled those out. So this is kind of separated from this cab support here, and I'm starting to get it separated from here. So what I think I'm going to do and try to save this cowl, or as much as I can, is I'm going to cut right long down in here and expose this part and see if I can't disassemble this thing without really getting into taking the firewall out. I don't want to take the firewall out until I get my floor pans set. But I can't really set my floor pans until I get my doors set, because my doors come off the rocker panel. So the most important thing on this truck right now is saving the alignment and the positioning of this right here. This thing's laying on its back, in case you hadn't figured it out. We did that so we could work on it. But these hinge pockets are going to dictate the fitment for everything. They're going to dictate the fitment for the floor pan, get alignment on the rocker panels. They're going to dictate when I replace these cab corners. I want to get that right. Now the doors are in rough shape. They're going to have to be redone, reworked too, but they're in good enough shape that I can get the original factory gaps and get that tuned up. Then once I get all that figured out, then I can redo my doors, because these clearances will be right. I have my gaps and everything, and then I can make the doors fit into the hole then. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. I've got some other videos and stuff I need to work on. I need to push all this out, and because there is so much stuff on YouTube, man, it's been such a big help. But one of the things that I cannot find, or I haven't been able to find yet, maybe somebody better than I am, is how do you do this? I think what did these trucks in was there's so much metal to metal that was spot welded, and it just over time it just created cancer. And everywhere you've got those multiple layers of metal sandwiched together, you're gonna get this rust. So anyway, I'll update this thing as we move forward, and get back with you. Thanks, bye. All right, so like we talked about earlier, made those cuts. Let's see, a little piece hanging up here. There we go. Okay, so this is what we were looking for. So what this piece is then is this forms a gusset, for lack of a better term, all the way back into here. And then that wraps around this I guess A-pillar is what you'd call it, for lack of a better term. See if you can see it there. So, pretty significant piece we're dealing with. Kind of changes change the lay of the land here. So let me look at this a little bit closer and I'll get back with you and figure out what we're going to do. Thanks. Okay, so we're back. Had a chance to look at this thing a little closer. I don't know what you call this piece. We're just going to call it we'll call it the inner cowl, all right? But what this thing does, it appears, is it acts like a gusset for the front of the cab. You kind of see it there. Trying to get a little better shot here. So it comes down, and then for whatever reason this thing's been cut. I don't know if this thing's been in a wreck or whatever. But then it marries up with the A-pillar. And this thing's kind of set back in there a little bit, kind of offset. So this plate is relatively flush with the rest of the pillar, and then it's welded obviously all the way over here. And you've got some kind of an L bracket that comes off here and supports what would be the bottom of the floor pan, and where the firewall starts. Firewall starts somewhere right about there, and kind of goes up rather. So based on the condition of this, I think this whole thing's going to have to come out, and then I'm going to have to somehow reproduce this piece. And once I do that, then my firewall should have a better chance of being right, as well as this front cab support. Obviously, my cabs, my supports right now, my bracing, my skeleton, this is going to have to be moved back to get out of the way of this. Then I have to cut these spot welds out and somehow figure out how to separate this from the cab. And in order to do that, and like I said earlier, I was wrong. This part doesn't really wrap around this post. It stops right there. So if I can get that separated, I won't have to fool with that, because again, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to cut this thing up into little pieces, because I've got to reproduce this somehow. And then the fun part is I get to do it again on that side. But I'll keep working on this. I know that this part of the outer cowl, lower cowl, has got to go. It's rusted out. So we might end up getting a patch panel. I think it's 16 inches, and for whatever reason, it goes right about here. Roughly, that's roughly 16 inches. So if I can't fix this, or can't save this, if it's deemed not savable, which it may be, we'll get a patch panel and put it in there. Anyway, so I'll keep working on this. Okay, so we're back at it. We've turned this thing back, I guess right side up. Got it back on our little table here. Done some work on it. From the last segment on this video, we still had the firewall in. We got to looking around, called the owner of the truck. He's been real helpful on finding parts and pieces and information on this thing. And what he was able to come up with is this piece right here. It's a lower cowl assembly, and it's from Classic Industries. And it looks like a phenomenal piece. So what you have here is, this is the piece that we were talking about earlier that's rusted out. And here's all the problem areas right here. So, but this thing goes all the way up to the door, or it goes up into the doorpost. And like I said, it is a complete piece, and I'm really impressed with it. Flip it over here. I'm not digging it up too bad. But here's the inner support. And this is the area that we're talking about on the truck. This is for the left side, but it gives you everything that it appears everything this truck came with originally. Here's the upper support. This attaches to the underside of the dashboard, and it even has. Let's see if you can see them here. It even has the screws, or the mounting plate for the door hinges, and the cage and all that. So put that around there. See that? So this piece really represents this whole lower cowl. It goes from here, the opposite side, but it goes from here, and it actually comes up into this right here, and it's this whole section. One thing it doesn't have with it, obviously, is a hood hinge. Is not a big deal. We got to take those off anyway. So the idea is, we'll undo the rivets, and it's welded and not riveted, but spot welded and welded in a bunch of different places inside this thing. It's not a very good picture, not enough light. But it's going to be quite the to-do to get this thing off of here. And we're going to go ahead and do both of them. Both of them are in pretty similar shape. If we're going to do one, you might as well do them both. But we've taken measurements off of it, and it looks to be a very, very, very close patch panel, for lack of a better term. Because, I mean, it's just really well done, it appears. So now we're back to the thing we talked about earlier, is keeping the geometry and keeping the positioning of these A-pillars, right? So we got to thinking and talking and planning and plotting and had several cigars and maybe a little bit of bourbon, but this is what we figured out. We know that if we leave one piece like this where it is, and we put the new firewall in here and we mock it up, we just tack it, but that gives us something to pull off of for this side, right? Now we've taken a lot of measurements. We've taken diagonal measurements. We've got this thing measured out pretty well. And what I'm going to do is probably build some jigs and kind of, so we know those things go back in the right spot. So we do one side at a time. We'll take this side off, put the new piece on there, marry it up to the firewall, get the positioning right, get our measurements right, then tack it over here, and then we come over here and take this side off. Once we do that, then we should maintain, with using our measurements and everything, we should maintain the same geometry as it was original. So that's what we're in the process of doing. What we want to do is we want to leave these cab supports, upper and lower cab supports, all this area intact. Put our firewall in here, get it positioned like it should be, and then, like I said, we'll just mock this up a little bit, tack it, clamp it, whatever, so it doesn't move, and then we'll take this piece over here and marry it up to our firewall. That's the plan. We'll keep moving forward. So today I'm just going to be working on getting. So we just did the plasma cutter, rough cut it at the firewall out. So today I'm going to be working on getting all these spot welds and sorry, that's my hand. Getting all these spot welds and everything kind of out of there, so we can get these pieces out and the floor panel sit where it's going to sit finally. And then once we get the floor pan in, we can take these off, or get those cowls replaced. Then we can finish taking these guys off, because those are going to help us position our floor pan until we get everything squared away. So anyway, that's what we're off and running doing today, and a lot of spot weld cutting and grinding and stuff like that. Nothing too exciting, so I'm not going to really show any of that. When we get that done, I'll come back and kind of show you what we did and how we did it. We'll go from there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, lots of progress. So on the last segment, we talked about taking the taking the existing floor pan out. We did all that. Like I said, nothing real exciting, just a bunch of spot welds. I think there was 10 or 12 just in this section here. So anyway, we got all that taken out, and we followed the plan, right? So we came back in and I did some more bracing. And whatever you do, I wouldn't have to follow. I wouldn't want to follow my bracing plan here, but it's kind of what developed over the whole course of this thing, and we've continued to use it. So what we've done, or what we did here, and we went ahead and got this cowl in today because we knew this was going to be the toughest one. It was going to be hard to video because we're working back and forth on this thing, but it's in place. So what we did, kind of backing up a little bit, we came in here and I had to add some bracing to the existing. So I added this horizontal piece and this vertical piece, and this vertical piece goes all the way to the floor. Right, so the whole cab is bearing on this part right here. And then what I was able to do is those bars that we originally used, I cross-sectioned those to hold those in place, because the idea is we were going to use those bars as our spacers, and it did work out. It got us really close, but we'll go through some other things that we did too, kind of go into that. But this is kind of how we kind of patched this thing, or not patched it, but how we engineered this thing, for lack of a better term, to hold up. So what we did before we took this cowl off, and before we took the other one, we put some tape on the floor and we took several measurements. And what we did was we dropped a plumb bob from this corner all the way down, and this corner all the way down to there, and then also used a laser tape measure and measured the distance, right? Because the idea is this thing goes back real close to where it was. We're pretty comfortable with it. We also did the same thing here. So what I did was we ran a plumb bob from the bottom of this hinge pocket, and what it does, because of the way this thing's framed up, it kind of tails off a little bit. But we still wanted to get this line, right? So we did that, and again we marked it just marked a spot on the tape, and then we also hung it from down here and mark the spot on the tape. So now that we've got this thing in here and we tacked it up, we went back, and so also what we did was we knew this thing was going to move around, so we marked where that post was on the floor, so we put it right back in the same position. So then once we got this thing tacked in, you know, we're like, okay, it looks pretty close. We measured, dropped our plumb bobs, and what we figured out was that we're off about, let's say, half an inch-ish. So then we got to looking at it, and one of the things that was going on is we were tight here. I've cut this pipe off, but we were tight up here, right? Because it was welded on there, but we had a gap at this one, maybe a half, you know, right at not quite half an inch, but we still had a gap down there. One of the things that we've been thinking the whole time was this cowl may have taken a hit over time, right? And now that we kind of confirmed that, because it was tight here, but it was out down there. The thing should have, everything being equal, the thing should have gone back real close to what it was. So then we got to doing some thinking and all, figuring. So what we figured was we cut those pipes out of the way. We just move those out of the way, and then before we started this process, we put the firewall in. So the old cowl was still here, right? It's old cowl still there. So we put the firewall in, and we used Clecos to hold it in place. We said, okay, that's the way it's got to go back. So then we were able to take the Clecos out, drop the firewall out, do all this work, and then we put the firewall back in. And to be honest with you, it didn't want to line up just exactly right. We've had to fiddle with it. Any of these parts that you use, you're going to have to work with it, and it's taken some time to figure out what we move and what we don't move. So once we took those pipes across there, it allowed us to kind of bend this piece in just a little bit and marry up with this firewall. And then when we dropped the plumb bobs off of here, they were almost spot on. I think we've taken some measurements from this cab mount hole to this one over here. We're within 3/16 of an inch, maybe a little less. So this thing is pretty much back to where it was when we took it off, accounting for some potential damage to that. So if you're going to do this, my suggestion is take your time and come up with some kind of reference point on all this, because if you just stuck this thing in there, welded it on there, you're going to be off. So the biggest thing, and I've talked about this before, is this door opening, right? So what we were able to do is this bar originally went to here. When we took the doors off originally, before we took the floor pins out, this piece right here was at the door jamb. So we are now, and we took laser measurements from here to here and down here. We wrote all that down, and we are right back to where we were. So we shouldn't have too much trouble with the doors. We have the doors here. If we have time, we'll test fit those and all. But so what we're going to do, we're going to continue on now, is we're going to take the firewall back out. This should remain, we can get this back because of the Clecos, right? We've had to kind of squeeze it together a little bit and get the gaps right, but it's very close, and I think it can be just explained by it being a new panel and stuff like that. So we're real close there. So what we're going to do is take the firewall back out, and I would really suggest, if you guys are going to do this, use these Clecos. They really help with putting it back to the same place every time. You can use screws and stuff like that, but in and out, you start to wall out the holes, and you're gonna move stuff around. So anyway, we'll take the firewall out, and then we will start taking this thing apart. I'm going to tell you that this thing has got spot welds everywhere. That piece that I showed you that kind of goes up into this pillar, there's about 6 or 8 spot welds right in this area. And luckily, fortunately, I didn't know that. This one bar here, this cross support here, really it was very close to being in the way, but luckily it wasn't. And it's one of the other things we had to do is redo this section here and over there, as you saw, was rotted out in here. So we've just got it tacked in. I've got to clean all this up, but we were able to make this piece and this piece. And one of the other things we had to do was cut this section right here out from the let's get the angle right here, from the dash panel. We had to cut that out because it's welded in there, and we had to, this section here, there's a section that bends over this thing. So we had to bend it out of the way, and it just got jacked up. So I'm going to fabricate, we tried to fabricate this piece before we put the cowl in, and we figured out it wasn't going to work. So now the cowl's in, now I can fabricate this piece and to lap back over that upper hinge. So anyway, that's where we're at, and we'll kind of update maybe tomorrow, or as we're working on this other cowl, I'll shoot some video and let you know how things are going. Okay, so what we're doing is the left-hand side, driver's side of this thing, and we're getting ready to drop the old cowl out. But to do that, this section there's a section on the cowl that comes up into here. And what we figured out on the other one, there's about 5 or 6, 7 spot welds that are kind of hidden behind here. So on this side, this face is good. This side right here, and then this side has got some rot on it. So I'm going to fabricate this piece, and I'll kind of show you how to do that. And then what we'll do is we'll get these drilled out, and then kind of get this mocked up and welded in, and then we'll be ready to start dropping this out. So there's a pinch weld in here, and what we figured out on the other one was we just went ahead and cut this section out, just completely separated it, drop this out, then you can access that pinch weld a little easier, separate that, and then you're pretty close to ready to put the new cowl up. So I'll show you how we fabricate this. Kind of a compound curve. It's going this way a little bit, and then sliding this way, and then we got this piece here. So a little bit of a complex thing, and I'll show you how I do it. Right. Okay, I wanted to wrap this cowl section up. We've started filling in. We got rid of this pinch weld. We're filling in here, trying to, get this metal work done right. And usually what I do eventually when we do the finish on it, we'll use some short strand fiberglass on these seams, to waterproof those and all. But overall, pretty happy with it. Our line really transitions well there. We got to go back in. We cut these spot welds out from the inside, so we saved this upper, this roll over here. So that's saved. I kind of got ahead of myself here because I just hung a door, but anyway, we kind of did the same thing on both sides, or in the process of. I obviously haven't gotten that done. But overall, cowl fitment looks pretty good. I will go into the next video. I've actually already pushed it out, is these hinges, so look for that. But now the next one I'm going to do is going to be the door fitment, but we'll get into that. And kind of like I said earlier on the other video, we had to butcher up this inner part here next to the dashboard. So I kind of got that back, getting that going in the right direction. Still got some work to do on that. But anyway, that's where we're at. That'll finish this one up. Thank y'all.